Hey, it's Mr. Shrum. Last time we talked about the respiratory system and how important that system was in terms of breathing and respiration. And now we're going to talk about another important system, the circulatory system. When you take a brisk walk or go for a run, you'll probably notice two changes in your body. You breathe heavily and your heart beats faster. You breathe heavily because your body needs more oxygen to go to the cells, and so the cells can create more energy. Your heart beats faster to pump oxygen-rich blood to the body. Your circulatory and respiratory systems work together as a team to make sure every part of your body gets the oxygen it needs to function. Let's take a look at how the circulatory system functions. Here's the anatomy of the circulatory system. The cardiovascular system transports the oxygen that reaches the lungs through the body. Cardiovascular means anything pertaining to the heart and blood vessels. The circulatory or cardiovascular system consists of the heart, blood, and blood vessels. The main function of this cardiovascular system is to transport oxygen, nutrients, and other useful substances to the cells. And the system also gets rid of cellular waste in the form of carbon dioxide and other molecules. It distributes heat throughout the body to maintain homeostasis as well. Blood contains white blood cells. They shorten this to WBCs in this lesson, and those help fight diseases. Blood also has clotting factors that are important for healing wounds. The heart is the main organ of the cardiovascular system. It functions by pumping blood inside the system, and there are two types of circulation: systemic and pulmonary. Systemic circulation, this is when oxygenated blood is carried from the heart to the rest of the body, while deoxygenated blood is carried from the body back to the heart. Systemic circulation, however, does not supply blood to the lungs. Pulmonary circulation carries deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs and brings oxygenated blood back to the heart. The heart performs circulation through a series of tubes called blood vessels. There are three different types of blood vessels. We have arteries, veins, and capillaries, and we're going to discuss them in detail. Here we see a vein and an artery. So we can click on each one and learn more about the specific type of blood vessel. The artery. Arteries are strong and elastic vessels with thick walls. They carry blood away from the heart. Think of artery A, away. These vessels are durable and large in diameter compared with veins and capillaries. Arteries are made of three layers of tissues. The outer layer is connective tissue, which gives the arteries strength. The inner layer is smooth muscle cells and is elastic in nature. The inner layer consists of endothelial cells lining the tube. This endothelial layer is made of specialized epithelial cells and is thicker in the arteries than it is in veins. Arteries are thicker than veins because they have to withstand the pressure exerted by the heart in pumping out blood. Then we have capillary. Arteries branch into smaller tubes called arterioles. These vessels further reduce in diameter farther away from the main artery. They merge with the capillaries, where the exchange of nutrients, oxygen, and carbon dioxide occurs. Capillaries are single-walled to allow easy diffusion of substances. Blood enters the capillary from the artery through arterioles. Blood exits the capillary to go to the vein through the venule. The oxygen molecules diffuse easily through the single-walled capillaries. And here you can see that there. Veins carry blood to the heart. Veins have the same three-layer structures as arteries. However, they have a thinner endothelial layer because the force of blood is lower in the veins. Blood flows at a faster rate in the arteries. By the time blood reaches the veins, the pressure has reduced and the flow has slowed. Many large veins have valves to prevent the backward flow of blood. You want to keep the blood moving one way. Breathing and muscle contractions can also put pressure on veins, enabling blood flow. Here's the heart. It's the main organ in the circulatory system. It's a pretty large muscular organ, about the size of a fist, and that's made of involuntary cardiac muscles. The heart performs systemic and pulmonary circulation simultaneously. Neurons send signals to the cardiac muscles in the form of electrical impulses, causing the muscles to contract and relax. The heart has 4 chambers, 2 upper atria and 2 lower ventricles. And a single atria is the plural form, singular form is atrium. So we have the right atrium and the left atrium, left ventricle, right ventricle. The atria up here have thinner walls than the ventricles because the atria only pump blood into the ventricles. The ventricles, however, pump blood with great force out of the heart to different parts of the body. So atria goes to ventricles and then ventricles to the rest of the body. The left side of the heart supplies oxygenated blood to the body. The left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs and sends it to the left ventricle, which pumps it to the rest of the body. The right side of the heart supplies deoxygenated blood. The right atrium receives deoxygenated blood and gives it to the right ventricle, which then pumps it to the lungs. The left atrium and right atrium are divided by the interatrial septum. The interventricular septum separates the left and right ventricles. And you can see those here. Here's the interventricular septum. Bam. And I don't think they pointed it out, but the atriums are divided as well. Valves between the atria and ventricles control the passage of blood through the heart. The atrioventricular valves separate the atria and the ventricles. Many major arteries and veins connect to the heart and transport blood in and out of the heart. Let's take a look at some of them. We have the aorta. That is the largest artery. It takes oxygen-rich blood away from the heart. The aorta branches off from the left ventricle and runs in front of the backbone. The aorta then branches to form smaller arteries that supply blood to different organs. Then we have the inferior vena cava. The inferior vena cava is the largest vein in the heart. Inferior means that the vein is located below the heart. So we have the inferior vena cava down here. And this vein carries deoxygenated blood from the lower part of the body to the heart. Then you have the superior vena cava up here. Superior means that the vein is located above the heart, and it's one of the largest veins in the heart. This vein carries deoxygenated blood from the upper part of the body to the heart. So lower body, inferior vena cava brings deoxygenated blood to the heart, and the superior vena cava brings deoxygenated blood from the upper part of the body to the heart. Okay. We also have the pulmonary artery. Although it is an artery, the pulmonary artery transports deoxygenated blood. It's categorized as an artery because it carries blood away from the heart to the lungs. Pulmonary vein, the pulmonary vein carries oxygen-rich blood from the lungs to the heart. Coronary arteries, 2 coronary arteries branch off from the aorta. They divide further to form a network of smaller arteries that provide oxygen and nourishment to the muscles of the heart. Cardiac veins. The cardiac veins are a group of veins that collect deoxygenated blood from the heart muscle cells and move it to the right atrium. Heart sounds. A doctor examines a patient's heartbeat using a stethoscope. There you go. The doctor listens for heartbeats created by the pumping of blood by the heart and the consequent flow of blood. The working of the human heart has 2 phases that result in 2 sounds, lub-dub. And in that first phase, the vena cava and the cardiac veins bring deoxygenated blood to the right atrium, and the pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood to the left atrium. The atria become filled with blood and push it toward the ventricles. When the atrioventricular valves close after the ventricles fill with blood from the respective atria, that is the physician hearing the lub sound. So that's all part of the first sound. The second phase is when the left ventricle pumps oxygenated blood into the aorta and the right ventricle pumps deoxygenated blood into the pulmonary arteries. The aorta and the pulmonary arteries have valves to prevent the backflow of blood. When these valves close, the physician hears the second sound, dub. Okay, first phase, lub, second phase, dub. The heart has a regular working rhythm. A group of cells called the sinoatrial node, or SA node, is located in the right atrium. This SA node is known as the pacemaker of the heart. The node receives internal stimuli from the oxygen needs of the body and sends out signals for the contraction of heart muscles. The signal sent by the SA node leads to the contraction of both atria. The atrioventricular node, AV node, controls ventricular contraction. So how can physicians tell whether a heart is functioning properly or not? They use tests that can identify problems in the heart, but they can also check important physical indicators that indicate the heart health, such as pulse rate. So let's take a look at how to take your pulse. Your heart rate is the number of times your heart beats per minute. Heart rate differs from person to person, and it changes with activity. You can find your heart rate by taking your pulse on your wrist or neck. Lightly place your fingers on your wrist or neck and try to find your pulse. Count your pulse for 10 seconds and then multiply that number by 6 to get your heart rate for a minute. What activities do you think will increase and decrease your heart rate? While sitting, the count was 10 beats in 10 seconds. So that's about 60 beats per minute on average. Standing up and walking around would increase the heart rate. Activities like sleeping, lying down, resting would decrease the heart rate. And EKG is an electrocardiogram. That is a test that measures the electrical activity of the heart. During each heartbeat, an impulse passes through the heart, enabling the contraction of muscles. The EKG measures the rhythm, rate, strength, and timing of the beat via electrodes placed on the patient's body. The EKG produces a graph on which the waves are printed. The waves represent different activities that take place during the heartbeat. The first shaded region, the orange part, shows contraction of the atria when the SA node receives the impulse. The second region on the graph denotes contraction of ventricles after the SA node sends the signal to the AV node. The third region shows the relaxation of ventricles. Analysis of these waves helps determine the changes in the heartbeat. Doctors study these changes to diagnose heart disorders, such as heart attacks and heart abnormalities. So this is a normal heartbeat, and this is what is called bradycardia. Based on the EKG, how do you define bradycardia? And it looks like it's a very slow heartbeat. If this is normal, this one's more spaced out. All right, so what is actually in blood? The components of blood, the blood is the connective tissue and the transport medium for nutrients and oxygen. A unit of blood is made up of different components. Plasma. If blood with anti-clotting factors settles, a yellowish liquid called plasma can be observed on the top. Plasma contains plasma proteins, glucose, vitamins, minerals, and hormones, and is approximately 90% water. Plasma provides viscosity or thickness to blood. Red blood cells, or RBCs, carry oxygen in the body. Red blood cells contain an iron-rich pigment called hemoglobin that binds to oxygen. This oxygen is then transported to the cell. When RBCs, or red blood cells, are produced in the bone marrow, they have a nucleus. The mature cells do not have a nucleus, which allows them to carry more oxygen. Red blood cells are disc-shaped, so they have a greater surface area to hold oxygen and easily pass through blood vessels. Here we have white blood cells, red blood cells, and other things to look at. Platelets are small circulating fragments of cells that help in the clotting of blood. A fresh wound stops bleeding after a while because of platelets. Platelets reach the area around the wound and secrete fibrin, an essential clotting factor. The fibrin forms a network of fibers that traps the platelets in blood cells to form a clot. The clot seals the wound and stops blood flow from the wound. White blood cells are known as the fighter cells of the body. They have a nucleus and are a part of the body's immune system. Some of them have receptors on the cell surface that can recognize bacteria and other foreign substances and protect the body from them. Some of the cells also secrete chemicals to destroy bacteria. So the images show the red blood cells of a person with sickle cell anemia, an inherited condition. What effects could the shape of these cells have on the efficiency of the circulatory system? Well, it looks like they have less surface area than the red blood cells of a normal person. Because of their shape, in the shape of a sickle, their surface area is decreased. These red blood cells likely cannot carry oxygen as effectively as regular blood cells. The shape can cause the cells to get stuck in the blood vessels, creating a blockage. And now we're going to look at science in the news. Hypertension. The blood that flows throughout the body exerts pressure on blood vessels. This blood pressure is measured using two readings, systolic and diastolic. The blood pressures when the heart contracts is systolic, and the pressure when the heart relaxes is diastolic. The normal value of 120 systolic over 80, 120 over 80 is ideal for adults. An increase in blood pressure causes hypertension. This increase can be caused by many factors. So let's take a look. Genetics. Some people inherit hypertension from their parents. If your parents are prone to high blood pressure, there's a higher chance that this trait will be passed along. Too much sodium. We do need sodium to survive. However, too much sodium can cause retention of water in the body. After consuming too much food with high sodium in it, the excess fluids lead to increased pumping by the blood vessels. Stress, tension, and stress are other important factors. They can increase heart rate and blood pressure. Being obese or overweight, the body tissues of people who are overweight require more blood, and this requirement leads increased pumping of blood and increased blood pressure. Smoking cigarettes contains cigarettes themselves contain the chemical nicotine. That increases blood pressure. The chemical also causes narrowing of arteries. Certain chronic health conditions and medications such as birth control pills and cold remedies can also lead to high blood pressure. Risk of hypertension. Hypertension leads to increased risk of heart disease. In the United States, about 1 in 3 adults have hypertension. Hypertension is the #1 killer in the United States for both men and women. Increased blood pressure may damage arteries and other blood vessels. Artery walls become thick from fat deposition, leading to a condition called atherosclerosis. The blood supply gets obstructed by such blockages, resulting in a heart attack. The pressure of blood flow increases and the cardiac muscles thicken to meet the blood flow demands. However, this thickening can cause the heart to pump blood less efficiently, again, leading to heart failure. Increased pressure in blood vessels may cause arteries to swell and develop a bulge. This bulge is an aneurysm, and this bulge can burst and prove fatal. An inadequate supply of blood to the brain results in a stroke. A stroke can occur when a blood vessel ruptures or when a blockage in a vessel results in less blood flow to the brain. So how can hypertension be treated? Today, doctors usually treat hypertension with advanced medication, and many new technologies are emerging for treating the disease. There's a video called Teen Stress. I can't watch it here for copyright reasons, but after the video, imagine that a friend confides in you that he's going to the doctor because he feels that stress might be affecting his blood pressure. He wants you to help him develop a list of questions to ask the doctor. What are 5 questions your friend can ask about stress and blood pressure? Here are the sample answers. How much does blood pressure rise because of stress? Are there techniques that I can use to cope with stress? Do these techniques help to reduce blood pressure? Is exercise helpful? Would medication help? Are there any other risk factors for high blood pressure? So now that's the summary, and that's it. So thank you guys for watching the respiratory and circulatory systems video. If you have any more questions, ask me in Canvas, And until next time, see you guys. Bye.